Okay, today we're going to be graphing quadratic functions, and y'all have graphed them before, just knowing like if they move left, right, up, down, flip, stuff like that. But today we're going to get like some really good actual points. We're going to use the calculator, and I'm going to show you how to do it from the 3 different forms of quadratic equations. So the first equation we're going to look at is whenever it's in vertex form. Okay. Vertex form, it's written on your notes, y equals a x minus h squared plus k. Okay, this is what vertex form looks like. And we call it vertex form because it actually tells you what the vertex is. Your vertex is going to be the point hk. And that's written up there on your notes too. And you might remember this from Algebra 1. Y'all were supposed to go over it. So let's look at the first example. And I'll show you what happens. So number 1, we have y equals 2x minus 5 squared minus 8. Okay, so to find your vertex in vertex form, you're going to take the opposite of your x. So my vertex is going to be positive 5. And then my y is going to stay the same. It's going to be that outside number, negative 8. Okay, so you always do the opposite of what's in parentheses. Positive 5, negative 8. That's my vertex. Okay, and then what I'm going to do next is go ahead and make my table. Now what I like to do is I put the vertex in the middle of that table, 5, negative 8. And I find points around that so I can see how my parabola is moving. So I'm going to find points at 4, 3, 6, and 7. Okay, so let's go to y equals on your calculator. We're going to put in this equation, look at our table, and it's going to tell us what points we need to plot. So y equals, we have 2 parentheses x minus 5 squared minus 8. Okay, so once you punch it in, y equals, you're going to go to your table. So second graph, and it's going to tell you all your points. Like I said, you want to kind of be around the vertex so you know how the parabola is moving. Okay, so when x is 3, my y is 0, 4, negative 6, and we're going to fill in that table. 5, negative 8, 6, negative 6, 7, 0. Okay. So once you have your table filled in, now we're going to plot our points on our graph. So 3, 0, 4, negative 6, 5, negative 8, and then that parabola is going to start coming back up. 6, negative 6, and 7, 0. Okay, so now you have your parabola. One thing I do want to mention, because we're going to use it later on too, there's an axis of symmetry that goes down right through the middle of your parabola. You should remember it from Algebra 1, axis of symmetry. And we'll use it more with root form and stuff like that, but just remember your axis of symmetry is going to go right down through the middle of that parabola. It's going to split it in half. So what you can do is once you plot some points and you get to that vertex, you can mirror the other points across your axis of symmetry and it goes a little bit faster. All right, so that's the first example. Let's try another one. All right, number 2, we have y equals -1, x plus 5 squared, and then that's it. Okay. So the way you can tell it's in vertex form is normally you have a parentheses and then a squared outside. Okay, so if you see that, you know it's in vertex form. It doesn't always have to have the parentheses, but it does have to have the squared. But yeah, most of the time it'll have a parentheses squared. So we need to find our vertex. Remember, your vertex is the opposite of what's inside the parentheses, so it would be -5. And your y is what's at the end. Now on this one, we don't have anything at the end, and so it's almost like saying plus 0 at the end. So it's -5, 0. All right, so on our table, we want that vertex to be your middle point, -5, 0. Okay, and we're gonna find some points around that. So we need to find when x is -6, -7, -4, -3. All right, and I would let the calculator do the rest of the work on this. Go to y equals. We're gonna change our equation to, let's see, -1 x plus 5 squared. Okay, so once you have it in your equation, y equals, you're going to go to your table, find some points. So press second graph. And we want to find some points around the vertex. So go up to where you have your vertex at -5, 0. And we have points like -7, -4, -6, -1, -5, 0, -4, -1, -3, -4. So go ahead and fill in your table. Once you have your table, you can plot those points. And let's go ahead and label that axis of symmetry. Like I said, it's just going to be a line right through the middle. It's always going to go through the vertex. And you might see it like written as AOS, axis of symmetry. So just know that's what that means, axis of symmetry. Okay, the second form we're going to learn is root form. Okay, so root form is going to tell you what your roots are. Okay. So let's look at number 4, that first example on root form. We have y equals 2, x minus 3, x plus 1. Now remember from the beginning of the year, even Algebra 1, your roots are the same thing as zeros. Sometimes we call them x-intercepts or solutions. Okay, they all mean the same thing. So whenever I tell you, okay, find your roots, I'm telling you to find your zeros, find your x-intercepts. Okay, they all mean the same thing. And what you're gonna do if it's in root form, like I said, it's like saying find your zeros. So you're gonna take each factor, each set of parentheses, and set it equal to 0. Okay, you should remember this from the beginning of the year. So we would add 3 to both sides, and x equals 3. Okay, kind of a trick way to it is it's always going to be the opposite. Okay, so my other root would be -1. Okay, it's gonna be the opposite. Now, whenever you start getting numbers in front of this x in your factors, it makes it a little bit different. You have to add another step. I don't know if you remember, but it's the opposite of the last one divided by the number in front of x. Okay, but right now, we don't have a number in front of x, so it's just the opposite. X equals -1. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna write down what our roots are. X equals 3 and x equals -1. Okay, now to figure out what the vertex is, we're gonna go to our graph and we're gonna plot these roots on our graph. Okay, like we said, roots is the same thing as x-intercepts, right? So these roots are x-intercepts at +3 and -1. So go ahead and plot those. -1 and +3. Okay, and your vertex is gonna be in between those two roots. Okay, so what you can do is you can take your fingers and then work your way to the middle. So my middle line here, my axis of symmetry, would go through where x is 1. Okay, it's gonna be right through the middle of those two roots. So we know, since our vertex is on that axis of symmetry, that the x value of our vertex is gonna be at 1. Okay, it's gonna be somewhere on this axis of symmetry. We don't know where yet, but it will be somewhere in the middle of those two roots. All right, so let's go to our table. We want our vertex to be in the middle. Okay, so we want x equals 1 to be in the middle of our table. And we're gonna find some points around that. All right, so go to y equals, let's see. Our equation is 2 parentheses x minus 3 x plus 1. Okay, once you have that equation in, you're going to go to your table and you're going to find some good points. So second graph, we want to be around the vertex. So go to where x is 1. Okay, and we're gonna fill in our table. When x is 1, my y is -8. Okay, that's gonna be our vertex. So you can go ahead and fill that in. Our vertex is 1, -8. Okay, and then the rest of the table, when x is -1, my y is 0, 0, -6. And then we already have the vertex. And then that parabola starts coming back up. Okay, now we're going to plot some points. So we already have the point -1, 0. Now we're going to plot 0, -6. 1, -8. 2, -6. And we already have the point 3, 0. So that's your parabola on number 4.